Swimming pool chemicals include various kinds of disinfectants and sanitizers, which work to control the growth of certain kinds of algae and bacteria in the pool water. Swimming pool chemicals may also be used in hot tubs, spas, wading pools, and whirlpools. Various kinds of disinfectants and sanitizers are used, but the chlorine type is the most common. The chlorine usually comes from chlorinating agents that release chlorine when they are dissolved in the water. Chlorine gas may be used in large pools. The chlorine-based disinfectants may be called chlorinating liquid, dry chlorine, or liquid chlorine. The so-called dry chlorine is actually one of the chemicals in granular or tablet form, while liquid chlorine and chlorinating liquid are solutions of these chemicals dissolved in water. We'll summarize the safe use of these chlorinating agents, but will not discuss the use of chlorine gas. Chlorine gas should be handled and used only by trained professionals. Keep in mind, pool chemicals can be dangerous. You may have worked with pool chemicals safely for years and years, perhaps doing everything correctly. Yet the danger remains because these chemicals can be deadly if not handled or used properly. In this program, we'll show you how to save money on the purchase of these chemicals. There are two main types of chlorinating agents. Organic and inorganic chlorinating agents are not compatible with each other. Many incidents occur when the same scoop or pail is used for both chemicals without cleaning them, or when adding one product after the other, or in the pool chlorinator. Learn the difference between organic and inorganic chemicals. Swimming pool chemicals can also be oxidizers and corrosives. Oxidizing materials have the ability to react chemically to oxidize combustible or burnable materials. To be an oxidizer, the material itself provides oxygen, which combines chemically with another material in a way that increases the chance of a fire or explosion. This reaction may be spontaneous at either room temperature or may occur with slight heating. Thus, oxidizing liquids and solids can be severe fire and explosion hazards. Bromine and fluorine are also oxidizers. Pool chemicals can also be corrosive. Corrosives are materials that can attack and chemically destroy body tissues on contact. Corrosives can also damage or destroy metal. The effects on tissues and metals depends on what the corrosive agent is and how concentrated it is. They can begin to cause damage as soon as they touch the skin, eyes, respiratory tract, digestive tract, or the metal. Material safety data sheets, also known as MSDS or product labels, should be consulted for the specific effects on tissues or metals and for procedures to follow in case of spills or splashes. Each chemical manufacturer is required to provide the material safety data sheets. You can request these from the retailer or wholesaler who sold you the chemicals.
The pH in the pool, whenever it is high, it's typically necessary to use acid, some type of acid, to lower the pH. Acid will come in two types. One is muriatic acid, which is a watered-down version of hydrochloric acid, and the other is known as dry acid, which is sodium bromine. The muriatic acid is fairly potent stuff. Anytime that it's added to the pool, it should be added at arm's length in the original container it came in and poured directly into the pool. As it goes into the pool, you may have some splash out, but that's only water whenever it hits the pool. The fumes from the acid are very potent and will take the paint off of metal if left long enough. And you wouldn't want to be in an enclosed area with an open container of acid, and you'll know immediately because it smells very, very bad. Once you're done pouring however much acid you need into the pool, recap it very tightly, and you can leave it outside, which is probably best. If it's left in the garage and for whatever reason there's a hole in the container, it will etch the concrete, and there's a very good chance that depending on how much acid you have, it could create very harmful fumes in the garage and begin to take the paint off of every metal surface, including the car. The dry acid is very stable. It can be left outside so long as you have the cap on tight, and it can be measured with any sort of measuring cup or just anything you need.
Read and follow instructions carefully. If there's anything you do not understand, ask your pool chemical supplier for help. Keep all chemicals out of the reach of children and pets. Containers should always be kept closed when not in use. Use separate clean metal or plastic measuring cups for each chemical to transfer or measure chemicals. Scoops should not be made of wood. Wear appropriate protective equipment and clothing, including gloves and footwear. Protect chemicals from moisture and water, such as a cup of water or coffee. Even putting the wet scoop back into the pail may cause a reaction. Always add the chemicals to the pool water, never the other way around. Never add water to the chemical. Wash your hands thoroughly after handling any chemicals. Do not use contents of unlabeled containers. Do not mix different chemicals together. Do not put spilled chemicals back into their containers. Avoid touching the undiluted chemicals with your hands. Do not smoke when handling chemicals. Do not expose to heat or flame. If a fire breaks out, do not use a dry chemical fire extinguisher. Only use large amounts of water. If you cannot extinguish the flame immediately, leave the area and call the fire department. Store in a cool, dry place away from sunlight. Keep out of reach of children and pets. Store chemicals in the original containers. Never store oxidizers and acid near each other. Oxidizers will release chlorine gas if they come in contact with acids. Do not store liquids above powders or solids. Do not store materials or chemicals above your head. Do not store pool chemicals near gasoline, algicides, fertilizers, herbicides, grease paints, tile cleaners, turpentine, or flammable materials. This tip is especially important when pool chemicals are stored in sheds or small storage rooms. Do not reuse containers. Wash out the container when empty and then dispose of it. Retail organizations are required to have procedures for cleaning up spills. They're not required to have special spill containment mats under retail displays. Retail outlets who sell to commercial employers must provide or have available material safety data sheets, as the federal OSHA regulation of hazard communications governs only employers and employees. Any spills larger than 50 kilograms or 110 pounds should be handled as an emergency and the fire department called immediately. If in doubt of what to do, call the fire department or your local chemical spill emergency response center. Before cleaning up a small spill, make sure that the material is dry and has not mixed with other chemicals. Do not clean if the chemicals have mixed with other materials, such as grass, paper, etc., or if the material is reacting, hissing, bubbling, smoking, gassing, burning, or the containers are bulging. If there is any sign that a chemical reaction is happening, evacuate the area immediately and contact your local fire department for help. What you should do: wear protective gloves, boots, and aprons made of butyl rubber or neoprene or other materials specified in the MSDS. Wear safety glasses or goggles. Goggles are often better protection against liquid splashes and airborne dust than glasses. Ventilate the area if indoors. Carefully place the spilled material in a clean, dry plastic bag or container. Place this filled plastic bag inside another bag when finished. Keep an eye on the material once it's been picked up. A reaction may be delayed. Dispose of the material according to the manufacturer instructions and according to local regulations. What you should not do: do not place spilled material back in the original container. Do not generate dust when cleaning up a powder or solid. The dust may react with the moisture on your skin and cause injury. If using a container to hold the spill, do not seal. First aid. Call for medical help immediately. Quickly move victim away from the chemical. Flush with lukewarm, gently flowing water until the chemical is removed. Gently remove clothing or jewelry that may restrict circulation or that may trap some of the chemical beneath it. Follow the first aid instructions on the container. What should I do if someone becomes ill from breathing chlorine? Take proper precautions to ensure your own safety before attempting rescue, such as wear appropriate protective equipment and use the buddy system. Remove the source of the contamination or move the victim to fresh air. If breathing is difficult, oxygen may be beneficial if administered by trained personnel, preferably on doctor's advice. Do not allow victim to move about unnecessarily. Symptoms of pulmonary edema can be delayed up to 48 hours after exposure. Immediately transport victim to an emergency care facility. What do I do if someone gets chlorine on their skin? Liquefied gas? Avoid direct contact with this chemical. Wear chemically resistant protective gloves if necessary. Quickly remove the victim from source of contamination and briefly flush with lukewarm, gentle flowing water until the chemical is removed. Do not attempt to rewarm the affected area on site. Do not rub area or apply dry heat. Gently remove clothing or jewelry that may restrict circulation. Carefully cut around the clothing that sticks to the skin and remove the rest of the garment. Loosely cover the affected area with a sterile dressing. Do not allow victim to drink alcohol or smoke. Quickly transport victim to an emergency care facility. What do I do if someone gets chlorine in their eyes? Liquefied gas? Quickly remove victim from source of contamination. Immediately and briefly flush with lukewarm, gently flowing water until the chemical is removed. Do not attempt to rewarm. Cover both eyes with a sterile dressing. Do not allow victim to drink alcohol or smoke. Quickly transport victim to an emergency care facility. Provide general supportive measures such as comfort, warmth, and rest. Consult a doctor and/or the nearest poison control center for all exposures. Some recommendations in the above sections may have been considered medical acts in some jurisdictions. These recommendations should be reviewed with a doctor and appropriate delegation of authority obtained as required. All first aid procedures should be periodically reviewed by a doctor familiar with the material and its condition of use in the workplace. Chemicals needed for clean, sanitized water are potentially harmful when stored or used improperly. Follow these simple rules for use, storage, and handling swimming pool chemicals. Keep all chemicals out of the reach of children and pets. Chemical agents for test kits should be replaced each year. Keep the original lids on all chemical containers and make sure the lids are closed tightly when not in use. Do not stack different chemicals on top of one another. Store chemicals in a cool, dry, well-ventilated area, preferably off the floor. Do not store your pool chemicals where other flammable items may mix with them. Before using chemicals, carefully read the label and follow manufacturer's instructions. Always add chemicals to water. Never add water to chemicals. Never add chemicals to the pool water while swimmers are using the pool. Test the water in your pool with a reliable test kit regularly. As a rule, the more people who use your pool, the more frequently you should test the water. Never reuse old chemical containers. Handle all chemicals, both liquid and dry, carefully. Never mix chemicals together. Explosions or fire can occur. Do not inhale dust or fumes of chemicals. Do not smoke when using chemicals. Wash your hands thoroughly after using chemicals. Do not allow chemicals to contact your eyes, nose, or mouth. In case of contact, or if a chemical product is swallowed, follow the manufacturer's label or advice. Call your doctor or your local poison control center. Transporting chemicals. Keep your vehicle clean and organized. Separate incompatible materials. Distribute between front seat, back seat, and/or the trunk. Don't purchase or carry damaged containers. Anchor your load securely so that it won't move around. Ask your pool supply dealer for MSDS sheets for your information and hazmat personnel in case of an accident. Storing pool chemicals. Store chemicals in a cool, dry, well-ventilated area with a locked entry. Do not set outside in the sun. Keep out of reach of children. Keep pool and spa chemicals separate from each other and from other chemicals. Violent reactions, such as explosion, fire, or noxious gas production can occur when incompatible chemicals contact each other. Never mix any chemicals together. Do not stack chemical containers on top of one another. Replace lids and caps firmly and immediately after opening. Post MSDS sheets and emergency information and phone numbers nearby. Using pool chemicals. Follow label directions carefully. Read the instructions. If the label is faded or torn, don't guess what it is. Return it to your dealer. Add chemicals to pool water, not the other way around. Chemicals should be added directly to the pool or through a feeder especially designed for that type of chemical. Chemicals added directly to the skimmer could allow strong concentrations to harm pool equipment or swimmers. If the instructions suggest diluting with water first, use a clean, oversized bucket with water in it, then add chemicals to the water in the bucket. Read the instructions. Wear safety gear when handling chemicals. This may include a breathing respirator to prevent inhalation of fumes, face shield, gloves, and apron. Do not mix chemicals ever. This includes direct mixing of full-strength chemicals in a bucket, diluted concentrations, and even adding chemicals to the same location in the pool. At the very least, you may get a water quality problem, or you may endanger your life or the life of others. Chemicals can mix with each other by using containers or scoops, which were previously used for other chemicals. Always use a clean bucket and scoop, designated only for that chemical. 1. Store chemicals properly in a cool, dry, well-ventilated area. Heat or water reacting with a chemical can cause fumes or flames. Proper ventilation of a storage area is important to reduce any buildup of fumes. It's best to store pool or spa chemicals in an area dedicated solely to them. Many pool or spa chemicals are corrosive to metals and should not be stored in the same room with metal equipment, such as a pump or utility room. Keep pool or spa chemicals away from other chemicals and equipment such as lawnmowers, fuel and lubricants, organic pesticides, solvents, paints, and thinners. Mixing of chemicals may start a chemical reaction resulting in fire, release of toxic gases, or explosion. There is a danger of explosion if pool or spa chemicals come in contact with certain other garden or lawn chemicals, fuel, and lubricants. If the pool or spa chemicals cannot be stored in a completely different area, use a locked, ventilated cabinet labeled Pool Spa Chemicals Only. Store chemicals away from children. Always keep chemical containers closed tightly when not in use. Replace caps and lids on the proper containers. Do not stack chemical containers on top of each other. Follow label directions carefully. When using chemicals, read the label and follow the directions precisely. Always measure the chemical accurately. Use the exact quantities specified. Beware of torn or faded labels. If you do not know exactly what the chemical is or how old it is, or if you can't read the instructions for proper use, don't use the chemical. 3. Add chemicals to plenty of pool or spa water. Chemicals should be applied directly to the pool or spa water through a suitable feeder, pre-dissolved in a bucket of pool or spa water, or distributed across the surface of the water according to the manufacturer's directions. Hand feeding of chemicals through the skimmer is not advised, unless label directions specifically state skimmer application. Some labels recommend diluting the product with pool or spa water or pre-dissolving granulated products in a large quantity of pool or spa water, not tap water. Always add chemical to water, not the reverse. Always follow these directions. This will prevent staining or cloudiness and will ensure uniform distribution throughout the pool or spa in the shortest period of time. Never pour water onto pool or spa chemicals. Always use an oversized clean plastic container. When adding chemicals to water, hold the container close to the pool surface so it won't splash on skin or clothes. Sprinkle granulated products close to the water surface so they won't be blown into your face or away from the water. 4. Avoid mixing or contaminating chemicals. Do not mix any chemicals together, either accidentally or intentionally. Mixing or contamination may cause chemical reactions resulting in fire, release of toxic fumes, and/or explosion. 5. Dispose of wastes and spills safely. Immediately clean up and properly dispose of any chemical spills. If the spilled chemical is a solid, carefully sweep it up using a clean broom and shovel and place it in a clean, dry plastic container. Avoid breathing the dust. If possible, dilute the chemical in water and add it to the pool or spa. Then test and balance the water. If it is not appropriate to add the spilled chemical to the pool or spa, check with local fire department or EPA office for directions on proper disposal. Do not put floor sweepings of chemicals back into the original containers or in containers with paper, rags, or other combustible substances. Do not use a vacuum cleaner to clean up spilled chemicals. If the spilled chemical is a liquid, it should be soaked up with absorbent materials and placed in a clean plastic or plastic-lined container. Avoid contact with the skin. The area should be flushed with large amounts of water. Wash empty containers thoroughly and follow local regulations for proper disposal. 6. If you see a flash, smoke, or fire, get out. Call fire department immediately. Advise them of the products involved and manufacturer's chemical spill telephone number if possible. In an emergency, you can call the Chemical Transportation Emergency Center, Chemtrec, at 1-800-424-9300. 7. Use only a water-filled fire extinguisher on pool chlorinating chemical fire. Never use a dry chemical fire extinguisher of a pool chlorinating chemical fire. It may cause an explosion. Summon help immediately, because the best way to fight a fire involving pool chemicals is to flood with extremely large amounts of water, such as is available through the fire department. 8. Take care of yourself. Do not inhale dust or fumes from any chemical. Use proper protective devices for breathing, handling, and eye protection. Promptly wash off any residues that get on your skin. Never smoke around chemicals. Smoking can cause a fire or explosion.
If anyone were to decide to do that, to use liquid bleach, then what I recommend is find the most generic that you can get. You don't want to put environmentally safe, you don't want to put forest friendly or whatever Clorox has come up with recently. Anything like that has different types of additives that no one aside from Clorox knows what's in them, and you don't want that in your pool. So if you can find a very generic grocery store brand, that's probably the best thing to use.
It would be nice if there were grocery store versions of all their swimming pool chemicals, but unfortunately that's not the case. We'll just list some of the money-saving tips for some pool chemicals. A little research on your part will determine what chemicals can be purchased less expensively than in pool suppliers. Virtually all grocery stores have bleach or sodium hypochlorite, baking soda, and borax. Household bleach, 5.25% at $1 a gallon, is no great bargain, but it's a functional substitute for any chlorine compound and is easy to get when you're in a hurry. Baking soda is about 50% less expensive than alkalinity increaser. Both are 100% sodium bicarbonate. 20 Mule Team Borax is several dollars cheaper than a patented branded material also containing 100% sodium tetraborate and is a good substitute for PHUP, especially in spas. It's about half the price. Save time, trouble, and money. Buy generic swimming pool chemicals. Some of those expensive, beautifully labeled high-end pool chemicals are not only the same chemicals as the big retailer stores, they're made by the same company, in some of the same plants, from the same raw material, using the same packaging equipment and the same containers. It pays to check on pool chemicals and what substitutes can be used. Over the lifetime of the pool, it could mean thousands and thousands of dollars in savings. Spas can be very inviting, but we've never found anyone in the pool industry personally willing to use a commercial spa. Health inspectors, doctors, dealers, service people, nobody who knows wants to get into a commercial spa. When you use a spa, your body releases sweat, body oils, skin oils, and other contaminants into the water. In a well-maintained pool, these are oxidized by the chlorine. Unfortunately, a properly maintained commercial 400-gallon spa with a 4 parts per million chlorine level contains only 1/4 of an ounce of chlorine. This is barely sufficient to deal with the contaminants from even one bather, much less 4 or 5. By comparison, a typical community pool with the same level of chlorine will contain over 7 pounds of chlorine distributed throughout the pool. Simply put, a commercial spa does not have enough oxidizing chemicals present to stay ahead of the gunk from multiple users. Needless to say, it's not healthy to use a commercial spa used by many people. But then again, there are many thousands of people who take their chances. Good luck. We've mentioned several times to never pour water into chemicals or to mix chemicals unless you've been trained and the practice is approved on the chemical labels. These tips are very important because fires, explosions, and other bad things can happen. All of the safety tips included in this program and the information on the material safety data sheet should be taken seriously. There's just no reason to take chances.